Good morning, everybody. Orange J here with another War of the Visions video, and today we're going to talk all about Sadali, the newest 100 cost wind mage coming to global tomorrow. We're going to compare him to our other favorite wind mage in the game. We're going to look at his whole kit and see if he's somebody that you should invest in, or is he somebody that you should pass on, continuing to stay strong for Dark Fina, for FFT, for FF13. A lot of good things coming down the pipe. But let's talk about Sadali today because he's pretty dang good. Now, before I do that, I do want to quickly give a big shout out to the members on the YouTube channel. These are people who click that join button under the videos and who are directly supporting what I do here. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do this as a second job, as a career without your guys' support. So Senior Plaid Pants joining today at that Saint of Eileen level. Hit me up on Discord, Senior Plaid Pants, if you want an account review done. And then we have Valhalla's, Taka, Brad, Mecca, Robert, all these people joining within the last week. Tim, Kyung, Kenneth, Okami, thank you guys for joining. And then, as always, big thank you to the people who've just been here forever. Merlo, Renato, we got people here for 16 months rocking that orange badge in the chat for being here over a year. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. Okay, let's talk about Sadali. It's time to talk about him, and let's start with his stats, actually. So here's the side-by-side comparison of Sadali to Halloween Little Leela. Keep in mind, they both do the same two things, but I don't know that Sadali will do damage or heal better than Leela does. It's the third thing that Sadali can do when we start looking at his kit that might set him above her. Anyway, let's look at the stats for now. He does have 400 more HP than she does. They're very similar in magic. He has 5 less. She has 1 more agility in her base stats. Both of them do have a way of raising their agility with support passive abilities, and both are starting in the mid 60s already, so they're both very, very fast. Sadali is bringing 4 base spirit, where Leela doesn't bring any base defenses, and if we look at their resist, Sadali is positive to slash and magic, which I think are the biggest two that I look for to be positive, especially slash, whereas Leela is weak to slash and very strong to magic. Sadali is weak to strike, but overall, I think Sadali's stat line is good, but I wouldn't say it necessarily separates him from Little Leela. And since they're both damage dealing mages who can heal, what is special about Sadali? Well, that's what we're going to check out. Now, his Trust Master I don't think is anything to really write home about. It is nice to have an accessory with 12 spirit and 14 accuracy on it, and you could build this out to be a particularly tanky piece of gear and maybe add some agility to it or something like that. But the buff that it provides, this healing power up when you perform a critical hit, doesn't feel game changing to me, so I wouldn't be pulling for Sadali specifically just for his TMR. If you're new and he's one of your first TMRs you've gotten, it would be a nice thing to throw on a tank for this spirit, especially if you gear it out with trust stones or something like that. His master ability is very good, however. He gives the HP and wind attack up to his wind allies, and this dude wants to be in a wind group. Let me just say that. You'll see more later. He wants to be with wind friends. He also gets 10 AoE resistance and 10 spirit penetration to help with his damage. I like the 10 AoE resistance, and 10 spirit pen is just kind of nice. AoE resistance on somebody who's playing a support role for my group, I think is very, very valuable. You want to be able to keep them alive, right? So AoE resist is a big way of doing that. Now, if we go into his kit, his support abilities, he outclasses Leela here, in my opinion. Both of them do have access to an agility up support ability. His gives him skill activation time down. This is not something that Leela needs. Leela does not need skill activation time down, but I do really like it on Sadali. Then he has Guru's Knowledge. This is from his Devout subjob. It gives him 15 defense and 15 spirit, but nerfs his magic attack by 20. Don't neglect this just because of the nerf to the magic attack that it gives you. If you're running him mostly as a buffer and healer, I think this is potentially very strong. 15 defense and 15 spirit is a nice thing to have. He also has an increase of AP and TP. I doubt this one will be super useful unless you're in fights where he's running out. You have magic up 30% from Kododama Wielder, never a bad option if you just want to boost his main stat. And then you have a spirit and earth resistance buff, which will be particularly good if you're going against earth teams or you just want a little more spirit. Now his counter moves, I'm kind of lukewarm on his counter moves. I do think think Retribution Reason is good because of its long range. It is a 4-range counterattack with a 30% chance to proc, that's 10% higher than most reaction abilities, and it'll do 121% magic damage that scales like you see there. It will also dispel all buffs and dispel haste for the target. So a pretty good reaction ability. He would need to live through getting hit for it to proc, so yeah. He also does have a 20% chance to proc a heal on himself, or a 20% chance to proc a 30% damage reduction on himself. I always like this 30% damage reduction, especially again on my supports. If that saves them and they can then heal themselves, that's really useful. But I think most people will probably run Retribution Reason for that really annoying, dispel counter right there. Okay. Now, in his main job, this is a new job, so we've never seen anything like it before, and it offers a ton of really unique, really strong buffs. The cheat move, his 7-use, 14 AP move, is essentially short-range, low-damage jamming thrust, right? 121% modifier, scales like the rest of his kit here, 100% magic, 30% dex, 20% of his agility, 10% of his luck, so he will get a little more damage from those stats, but magic is going to be the big one, and then it cancels ability activation, just like jamming thrust, which could be kind of annoying. And when we're talking about Sadali, if you're imagining fighting against a Sadali, keep the word annoying in your mind, because this dude is gonna be that. Okay, let's continue. Now it's time to look at his buffs. This is where he separates himself from Little Leela. I think she's definitely a better healer than he is, and she probably has better damage options than he does, although it's close there. His, again, are probably more annoying. It's his buffs. His buffs are next level. So Holy Word of Power, it's an instant cast buff that has this nice AoE shape to it. It increases attack and magic 40% for allies, and increases AoE resistance by 20% for wind allies, including himself. So just with his master ability and this buff, he would be at 30% AoE resist. If you could get him some gear, if you could get him some vision card buffs, you could very easily push him to 50% or higher AoE resistance. I think that's very, very strong. He also has the Holy Word of Liberation that upgrades to God of Liberation. This is another super good buff. It increases all elemental resist for him and his allies by 20%. Every element. That's a big deal. That's a super good buff, again, for like your tanks, for anybody who wants to catch it. Just, that's really good. And the nice thing about these buffs is the AoE resistance buff and the elemental resistance buff are defenses that are harder for the opponent to cut through. Oftentimes in this state of the game, people are running slash resistance penetration, or magic resistance penetration, or spirit pin or defense pin. You don't see a lot of elemental resistance penetration or AoE resistance penetration. In fact, with AoE resistance pin, is there any in the game? I'm not sure there is. So they're very effective for that reason. Now, the nice thing about the EX upgrade for this elemental resist buff is it removes the casting time to the buff and increases his own spirit penetration by 50. So that will combo very nicely again with his master ability, giving him 60 spirit penetration with just this buff and his master ability. So very, very strong. And those two TP moves are amazing. And there's more to come. There's more to come. Now, here's his big AoE attack. It's fairly short range, right? It's only range 3, but it does hit in a big AoE. It has a very good debuff on it as well. It will decrease CT of the targets by 25% and decrease the agility for 1 turn of the targets by 30%. So it's meant to just delay the other team from taking actions while also doing 185% modifier damage. The weakness here is that it's fairly short range for how big the AoE is, which might bring Sadali into range of the opponent, which could be a drawback there. He also has sneaky damage right here with access to archery. This is a magic scaling missile attack with a nice range of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this will help him stay back. It's a magic missile move, so those are in there. Think Valentine's Day Salier Garvel have some of these. It also has a 25% chance to inflict confusion. Sadali's going to be a high faith unit, so his chance of landing things like confusion are going to be higher. That's a nice little status effect to drop on your enemy. It gets EX upgraded as well to also decrease the missile resistance of the targets by 25% for 3 turns, then hit them with the debuff, or then hit them with the confuse, and if they're confused, decrease their required AP by 80% while they're confused. So if they turn around and start hitting their teammates, they're not going to generate AP for themselves while they're messing around, right? That's pretty neat. And then his job level 25 ability, Immortal Dogma, super good, especially when paired with a tank. It will give re-raise to the target, right? And then it will also increase the target's chance of being targeted by 4. So it gives hate to the receiver of the re-raise. Wow. That's amazing. Pair this with somebody like a Joom, right, who already has some hate but could run out. Now she has even more and she has re-raise. Or if you're running him with like some bruisers, like Mary Moores of the world, something like that, giving her that re-raise and directing some aggro to her might be part of your plan. Really, really good skill right there, that job level 25 ability. Now, his Church Ancestor sub-job, not the greatest. He does have a wind resistance debuff, 48% in there. It's a magic move, and this is where I want to talk about definitely one of Sadali's weaknesses. He's a mage, and a lot of time mages are not great for PvE. Sadali as well, not going to be super great for PvE. And when I'm talking about PvE, I'm talking about like chaining on boss squads, guild raids, Trials of Reckoning, things like that. I don't think that's where he's going to shine. I think he's mostly a PvP unit, or just somebody to increase the power of your generic wind PvE team. He does bring in a wind resistance debuff, which could be useful in those fights if you don't have somebody else to do it, but he doesn't have access to slashing moves anywhere in his kit, which holds him back a little bit if he's getting multiple turns in a wind slashing team, something to keep in mind. Now, he does have a nice move jump buff right here that also gives him an activation time down buff, so that's kind of cool. It's for his attack moves. That's decent, but I don't think you're going to run Crystal Church Ancestor most of the time, because note we haven't talked about any heals yet. His main job is all about buffing and doing damage. So is he a healer kind of like Leela? Yes, he can be. You just have to go into his tutor sub-job to make that happen. This is Minwoo's job. And this gives him access to some really good TP moves. First of all, he gets a wind attack buff that also increases debuff resistance and decreases activation time for himself. I think this is a fine move. However, I think it's outclassed by his group buffs from his main job. I think the main reason you run Tutor is for the heals. It gives him access to Cura right here, which is an AoE heal, and it gives him access to one of the best single target heals in the game, the Method of Lively Healing, or whatever it's actually called in English. This is a 210% heal. It's single target, but no casting time, which is a humongous deal. It also comes with a 3-turn buff that is 25% agility, 40% attack, and 40% magic. Now, the thing to think about right here is this. What's his AI going to be like? I imagine with his main job being all about buffing and doing damage, his AI is not going to prioritize the healing side of it. This is another reason why I think Little Leela is going to be a better healer than Sadali is, where I think he's going to focus mostly buff up his group, do as much damage as possible. But in situations like Guild Wars Defense, Guild Wars Offense, where you might come into a fight with low HP people, things like big healing can be very, very clutch. So if you want access to some of those heals, here you go. He also does have Kodadama Wielder as a sub-job, which this one's important for giving him a 100% hit move. You might run that for this, especially if you're planning on fighting some evasion teams, so keep that in mind. It also gives him access to a magic shield. Now, his limit break. I mentioned annoying to fight against. Here is probably his most annoying move to fight against. Okay, first of all, it's a 1 cast, range 4. It's a 50% increase to magic attack resistance penetration to him first, so he will do more damage. It's at a 200% scaling modifier magic attack move with a 67% chance to inflict charm for 3 turns on the target. If you guys know how status effects and limits breaks work, they usually apply the status effect. If this dude's running at high faith, you can almost just count on this status effect landing. So Sadali having access to a charm is a big deal. And not only is it a charm, it like makes them turn on their team, and then while they're charmed, they get a 40% attack and 40% magic buff. So while you charm somebody and they're turning around and messing up their friends, they will do more damage. So it's a really like cool betrayal mechanic that he has here. And I think this is going to be a very strong move and something that kind of defines him as a character. So like when I'm talking about his kit, we're going to talk about his weapons here in a second. When I'm kind of summing up his kit, really good buffs, decent damaging abilities from his kit, if not a little bit short range, with a very, very strong limit break. And his healing does seem to be limited to maybe like early in fights if you're already low HP, or if you're manualing, you have access to him all the time. Now, let's talk about weapons for him, because coming out with Sadali is the Diamond Mace. The Diamond Mace is a 20 spirit penetration mace. He's a mace user, just like Leela is. So 20 spirit pin is nice. The drawback of this mace is it caps at 176 magic, or you have the 15 accuracy version if you wanted to go there. Is this the best mace for him? Maybe if you haven't built a +6, because we do in global right now have access to the +6 platinum mace. Let me go ahead. Yeah, we're on the global side. So this has 221 magic, which will help both damage and healing, and comes with an accuracy buff on it. So I think probably if you have a +6 plat mace, this would be his best weapon to use. If not, I do love spirit penetration, and he's somebody who you can see through his kit can already get a lot. Alternatively, there is the healing mace. I've never really been much of a fan of the healing mace, but it's only 157 magic, which I don't love. We don't have access to the +6 yet, and he already has access to a better single target heal. So I wouldn't worry about the healing mace. I would stick with the +6 plat mace or the new diamond mace for him. And there we go. That is the Sadali preview video. I think we'll learn a lot when we see how his AI actually works in terms of healing, but I would count on him more as, again, a buffer and a annoying attacker to deal with for the enemy team with those confusions and those charms and those, CT down hitting moves. I think he looks really strong. I will be pulling for Sadali. You guys know I love my Joom. I'm excited to pair him with her. I think if you're thinking about pulling for him, do you play Wind? If you're a Wind player, if you have Joom and a DPS unit, or Joom and Leela, something like that, maybe a Marymore, Winter Luartha, there's a really powerful combo right here with Sadali added to your kit. If you're not a Wind player and you don't want to, go for a 100 cost unit tomorrow, well, then maybe stay strong. And yeah, anyway, I'll see you guys on stream for pulling for this guy tomorrow, and good luck. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Happy 4th of July if you're living in America or wherever else. I'll tell you what, what's something I understand now? Having a baby and it being the 4th of July sucks. It sucks. It's terrible. He wakes up constantly. You probably hear the fireworks in the background. Somebody's up there with him right now so I can record this. So thank you to them. Thank you to you. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.